Hi everybody and welcome to my Q&A live today. I am helping people during lockdown. So this is what I'm doing these sessions. So I'm helping people. They're sending in me questions and I'm answering them live online on these Instagram posts to help you get the answers that you need to how to cope better with your breakup. So if you're going through a breakup and you are struggling to cope, maybe you are struggling because of the lockdown situation and it's making it worse. Maybe you've just found out that your partner's left you. Maybe they've just walked out during lockdown. Maybe this has been going on for a long time. Whatever your situation is, please drop me your questions either into the chat on here, on Instagram, or on YouTube for those of you following me on YouTube right now. So I want to give you as many answers and as much help and support as I can in this session. So do please put your questions out there so I can help you and get back to you. So just drop them in the chat. Let me know how you're doing. Hello, everybody. Hello to all of you joining and those of you who are regulars and those who are new on this session today. So I wanted to talk to you today about a couple of things. One of the things that has come up is that people are saying to me that they just don't have what it takes to get through this difficult time. And what I wanted to say is, yes, you do. Please, please, please know that you have everything that you need within you right now. Okay, you have it. And the very fact that you are here today and you are taking part in these sessions and that you are just putting one foot in front of the other shows that you are a survivor and you have very effective survival strategies that you might be running unconsciously, but they've got you to this part. Because if we look back, you know you've been through tough times, right? You know that you've gone through difficult times in life, not just your breakup, not just your not just the lockdown situation that we're all going through now, but actually in the past you've been through tough times too. And you've got over them. So you might be able to think way back to childhood or your teenage years or maybe your 20s or your 30s or your 40s when you went through something really tough. And guess what? You got through it. And guess what? You're here now. So those survival strategies that you run are effective. You are good at getting through challenging times. And if you think on a scale of things that are really, really difficult to things that are pretty simple to manage but may put you off track a little bit, and everything in between, you've overcome all those things to get to where you are. So you have living proof that you can do this, you are a survivor, and you will get through it. So I want you to know that because of that, that's why I'm saying you have everything you need within you now to cope with what you're doing. Now, obviously, it's always good to read things that are going to help, to tune into sessions like this, to ask people for support and extra advice so you can fine-tune those things. Also, you're running them unconsciously. Well, most of you will be running them unconsciously. You won't really know what you're doing specifically. So that's why these sessions are good to help you highlight consciously and move it from that unconscious behavior that you're doing that's helping you to the conscious behavior that gets you through. Okay, now the power of that is once you know consciously what you're doing that's working for you, you can then control it and say, right, I want to do more of that, or maybe I want to do a bit less of that and a bit more of this, you see? So that's how it puts you back in the driving seat of your life and enables you to start moving forward. So all these things are really, really important. So if you guys have got any questions that you wanted to raise today, you've got any topics you want me to talk about, maybe some of you are thinking about dating, maybe some of you are worried, struggling to deal with heartbreak. I've got a client at the moment who is really struggling from that, and a couple of people have emailed me in about a certain issue with partners. So I don't know if you've ever been through this experience yourself, but if you are with somebody and then they leave you, but then they don't make it clear. So they are still in touch with you, they're still being very friendly. Yesterday, there was also somebody who emailed me in, or maybe DM'd me, who said that she was really struggling because her ex had said he wanted, her partner, who she lives with, had said on a message to her, a text, that he wanted a divorce and she should go get herself a lawyer. But then when he came back in that day, because he's still working at the moment, he hasn't mentioned it since. She didn't want to bring it up because he has a bit of a temper, so she wasn't sure how that would go down. And she's not really sure how she feels. So we're working through that at the moment. But if you've been in a relationship where sometimes you just don't know the clarity, they're talking about breaking up and then they're not talking about breaking up. They're talking about this is all going to work out and then they're backed off again. Have you ever had that? You have that sort of confusing mixed messages, mixed signals. Well, this is really a sign that you really need to start to work out, number one, what do you want? Okay, because if your partner is sort of dangling on a string, or they've left and then they come back, and maybe, I know one of you emailed me in to say that you were intimate with your partner a couple of weeks ago, but then they haven't been in touch since, and you thought maybe that was a thing to do to reconnect and show him that you could be back together and it could all be good, but then he's gone cold on you since then. So if you're on here, then do jump in the chat. I know you've been listening to a lot of them on catch up on my YouTube channel, but how do you manage that? You know, that hot cold dynamic with a partner who sometimes is really into you and then sometimes is pulling away from you. Sometimes they're saying they want to be with you forever and treating you like a prince or princess, and then on the other side they're dismissive. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to be connected with you. Now, this is really interesting because it can be a real challenge for you to get your head around what's going on. It's very difficult because we can't control other people's feelings, whether they're on, off, hot, cold. We can't control their actions. But what can you control? Well, you can control working out what you want and how you want to move forward. So, for example, if your ex is being hot and cold, what do you want from this relationship? Do you want to be with them or don't you? Do you want to be in this up, down roller coaster of a connection, of a relationship? Or do you want to say, do you know what, this isn't for me? You know, if you want to stay, what are you prepared to do and what are you prepared to tolerate? And really look at that. What is that acceptable behavior for you in the relationship with your partner? Is it acceptable for them to be like that? Is it acceptable for them to be intimate one minute and then ignore you the next? So I really want you to think about what you want and then actually deep dive into that to see, is this best serving you? Is this something that treats you well? Because do you want someone like that or don't you? You know, and what are your boundaries for moving forward with that partner? If they're going to treat you like that, is that something you're going to accept for now? Maybe while you put some things in place to work through it. And what would those things be? But in 6 months' time, if you're still in this situation, what is your plan? If you imagine your life in 5 years' time and you're still in the same situation, in 10 years' time, what damage will be done to you, to your confidence, to your self-esteem, to your family setup, maybe to your kids, to your relationships with other people, to your self-confidence? All these things have to be taken into consideration. So I'm not saying you need to make it a knee-jerk reaction right now, but I do think the important thing is to put you back in the driver's seat so you can then take control. Okay, so Kate Finn says, I have 50-50 custody with my ex. Our 11-year-old has decided he'd rather be with me more now. How should I talk to my ex about it without causing an argument? Well, what is your relationship like with your ex? If you could sit down and have a chat with him about that, then I think that's important. I mean, ultimately, it's important for your son to have a relationship with his dad. Do you know why he's decided he'd rather be with you more now? Is there something that's happened? Is there anyone else that he could talk to that's independent of the two of you if he finds that hard to do? Yeah, I think it's really important to understand why children, because at 11, he knows his own mind, he's his own person, he's obviously had 50-50 with your ex for a long time, so that's been going on for a while. What is it now that's tipped the balance? And is there anything you can do to help him with that, to help him manage that? Because if that's, you know, that's important, that he has that relationship with his dad, and if he's had that 50-50 custody, then that's something that, I don't know if that's court ordered or not, but if it is, then obviously that's something that you've got to stick to. So how can you make it better for him? Is there anything that his dad could change maybe that would make him feel more comfortable being there? You know, these things are important. So having that open communication with your son first and really understanding why and what the reasons are behind it, I think would be a good place to start. And then if you have a relationship where your ex is open to talking and being amicable and discussing things, then I think it would be good for him to understand. But obviously you've got to find a way, and you put in there without causing an argument, you've got to find a way to sort of manage those subjects. Now, you know your ex best, and you know what's going to upset him and what's not going to upset him. So figure out what's going to work best for him, I think, is really important. Okay. A thought help says, ex won't settle. Lawyer's advice today, anticipated legal fees, $5 million. Wow. I mean, I've seen some big legal bills in my time, but $5 million. I'm overwhelmed. My ex wants to destroy me financially. I'm powerless. He's a lawyer on big dollars and I'm a mum. Okay, so again, with these kind of situations, I think it's important that you work out what's in it for you. Okay, what do you want? What is your, because obviously $5 million is a lot of money. I don't know what your net worth is and what they're saying I mean, obviously if you're only going to stand to gain $5 million and you're paying that out, then obviously that doesn't work. So, but what is it, and why are they so expensive? I mean, that is crazy expensive. I just want him to leave me alone so I can have a peaceful life. He's obsessed with bringing me down. Okay, honey. 0.5 million. Oh, sorry. I was going to say. Oh, yeah. Sorry, it does say 0.5 million. It's just hard to see on here. Okay, $500,000. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think what I would suggest that is a good way of doing this is to say, look, what do you want? So I'd work out what you need to survive. I do your budget, I do your monthly budget. What do you need to live your life, to be comfortable, to carry on, to exist? Because peace of mind is what you said there. You just want to be left alone so you can have a peaceful life. Well, what is that worth to you? Because I think by the sounds of things, you're going to have a legal battle on your hands. So what's the balance? Maybe you can put forward a proposal that would be accepted by the other side. That means you don't have to go through the legal battle. It might be less than what you would get if you went through the courts, but it would save you all that emotional and traumatics of legal process as well. So maybe you can have a think. I mean, what I do a lot with my clients is work through what is their budget, what do they spend, everything from rent or mortgage, car payments, getting a haircut, if that was possible right now, that would be great to have. But all those things, what is your budget for living? Your gas, electricity, your water, all those things. What do you need? And if you've got kids, what are the costs associated? Then what do you need to support them and keep that going? Holidays and those sort of things. What do you need to stay safe? What do you need to have that life you want to have? Okay, that's important. And then ultimately, once you've done that, I would say, what about look at talk to your lawyers to say, well, if this is what I need, would you be ready? Would you be okay to ask for that and just see? Because if you could avoid court battle, I would strongly recommend it, because if they're quoting you 0.5 million, it's probably going to be $1 million. I mean, in my experience of lawyers, the costs are they never underestimate, they never overestimate legal bills. They usually underestimate them quite substantially. Kate says, thank you. Maybe I try to get my son next to talk without me so you can see this isn't coming from me. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, he doesn't want me to have anything, so sort of okay, Kate says, I think he thinks it's me trying to change arrangements. Yes, that would be a good way of trying to manage that, Kate. I do. I mean, it's always very difficult, those sorts of things. But 11, he's got his own opinions, his own voice. So yeah, it depends a lot on your relationship with him and how you can manage that, obviously, which you know best. So trust your instinct on these things. I think quite often we get into, oh gosh, I don't know what to do, but trust your instinct's always the best way forward. Thought health, we put a fair and reasonable offer and he won't counter. Okay. Well, I mean, you have to think, I mean, it gets to the point where you have to make a decision with legal things about, what it's going to cost you versus what you're going to gain. So, for example, if what the gain is a lot higher, and your lawyers will tell you, we think with the laws the way they are, wherever you're based, this is what you're legally entitled to. This is what we think within this range is what would, given past cases, your situations, the law, what you would get. So then you have to work out, well, what's the gamble? I mean, if you're going to get nothing, then obviously you've got to fight for your kids and for you. You've got to say, well, hang on, I'm legally entitled to something and defend your legal rights. If it costs you $500,000, it's better to pay $500,000 to get something than to get nothing, as long as it's not going to leave you in deficit. Do you know what I mean? So I think this is a question you're going to have to work out with your lawyers, really. But if someone's being a bully, that never looks good in court. It never looks good in court. I mean, it may not necessarily make a huge impact, but it will have some bearing on the judgment. So what I would say is, you've got to stand up for yourself and don't back off, because this is typical law firm bullying tactics of putting you down. So you put the fear into you. Gosh, it's going to cost this much. I mean, I'm not saying from your law firm, the other one saying this is it and we're not going to counter offer. No. Well, okay, fine. If you don't want to counter offer, they're going to have to incur costs too. Okay, maybe that's not what they want. Maybe they can afford it more than you. But I would also look at other lawyers maybe at this point before you launch in and just see whether someone could do you a fixed fee, or there's another way of doing it with a different law firm that maybe isn't quite as expensive, that would help support you as well. Because, you know, a lot of the time you sort of talk to one law firm and you think, oh gosh, I'm with them now and it would be too expensive to leave, or I'm caught up in that. And actually a lot of the time it's sorry, I'm just trying to yeah, a lot of the time it's really one of those things where a lot of the time it's a bully tactic by the other side to make you feel like you want to give up. Yeah, it quite often do that. So Eve, hi Eve, she's one of my coaches. Yes, do not back down. I've kept fighting. His lawyer is a huge bully. Yeah, and this is something that I don't understand really, because I don't know about the US, but in the UK there are rules around how law firms should work, and you should try and reach an amicable agreement if you can. You know, and court is the last option and those kind of things. But there are a lot of law firms that obviously are driven by sales targets and want to make their money, and that's obviously, they're a business, but it kind of ignores those rules. And sometimes you know, you can go, that's why I always say when you pick your lawyer, you're picking really the tone, setting the scene for your divorce. So I would definitely have a look around and just see. This is probably a tactic. I see it a lot with my clients. I know I've been on the receiving end of bullying tactics by law firms during my own divorce, where they will put pressure on you and send you letters that are designed to make you think, oh gosh, I'm going to give up, I'm going to drop everything, have the house, have the money, you know, all that stuff. Because that's, I don't know how they sleep at night, guys. I really don't. And it's a question I ask myself for many a time. But you know, that's their job and that's what they do. And sometimes those tactics pay off for their clients because they just back off. Then they go, it's too much, I'm too scared, they have the money, I don't. It's a common tactic. I mean, obviously in this situation they know you don't have the funds, and they do. So it's just a very common tactic used. I'm ashamed to say for that industry, although it's not my industry. I just find it despicable, the tactics they use. And it sounds to me like this is exactly the tactic they're employing, and obviously your natural response will be what this tactic is designed to elicit: fear, uncertainty. Do I want it? Should I just walk away with nothing? But you have legal rights. So I understand that your lawyer is telling you it's going to cost you some money, and it might do. But again, it's that cost versus reward that you need to look at. And also, you know, it's not just for you now. You know, you might have to go through some hardship for a little while fighting it. I'm not underestimating that for a second, because I know how difficult that can be. But actually, ultimately, to come out the other side with a fair settlement, it would have been worth it, possibly, for you. So, yeah, that's what you have to weigh up with your lawyer. Okay, hopefully that's helped. My lawyer does not engage, just keeps to the facts. Yeah, and I think that's important. You know, when you're working with law firms, you can really, you know, speak to them and just say, look, I don't want to respond to every email. I want to keep the cost as low as possible. How are you going to do that? You know, just say, I don't want to run, you know, because sometimes you can get caught up in letters going backwards and forwards about dogs, about grand pianos, about, you know, all sorts of things that are just irrelevant. And sometimes, and this is another tactic, the client who's got all the money will be sending lots and lots of legal letters so that the other person has to defend themselves by replying to them. And it's about being very careful about not getting drawn into that trap and only responding where you absolutely should and have to defend yourself, rather than getting engaged in tit for tat all the time. And you need to make sure your lawyer is very clear on that and isn't driven by sales targets as well, which is why, you know, as with every industry, they're the good guys and then also, you know, the dark side, I call them. And sometimes it's important to make sure that you're with a lawyer who is going to work for you with your best interest at heart, not someone that's driven under pressure from a very forceful financial director or sales director pushing the sales and pumping the clients for money. So, you know, they're a business and some people have different rules for running their businesses. So just make sure that you're very clear and get it in writing, get it agreed, make sure they know that this is your budget and that's it. And if they aren't the lawyer for you, well, then you go somewhere else. But there's lots of people, lots and lots of law firms out there, so, you know, that could help. So, yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Thank you. Tactics. Mine offered a fixed fee. Yeah, worth asking. Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. There are some lawyers that offer fixed fee in the UK. I'm not sure about over there in the States. Obviously that's more risky, especially with a case like this. What you might find in very complex cases, they don't want to do that, or they'll offer you a fixed fee for certain parts of the divorce, but if it goes on to another stage, and obviously that's not included, because they can't say what's going to come up or not come up, so they won't be able to say, right, that's it, because then if your ex is filing all different sorts of applications for different things, then obviously they'll be way out of pocket. So what you'll find is they'll do a fixed fee which will cover certain things, and it will be quite ring fenced, but that might be a way of keeping some of the costs down at least, you know. Eve, I got letters saying the dog wasn't allowed on the sofa. Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. I mean, that's the thing. You get those letters and then you respond, and then every time you send a letter, you know, minimum £200 probably for someone to sit down and write the letter. And if it's a partner writing it, it's £600 to £800 in some cases. And then it just goes backwards and forwards, and all this is just crazy waste of money. But it's sales revenue for the law firm. So, you know, we've got to look at it from a point of view that this person is is a business. Law firms are a business, you know, and you've just got to work out what kind of law firm you're dealing with. If you're dealing with someone that, or if you're on the other side, someone who's got tactics that are bullying to beat you into submission, which I think is morally reprehensible and absolutely disgusting and should not be allowed. But unfortunately, this is allowed in the family courts in the UK. I don't know about in the States, but I know it's a very common tactic, because I have a clinic full of clients who are showing me these letters day in, day out, day in, day out. But I've got 3 this morning from different law firms that people are saying, I can't cope with this. It's affecting my mental health. I've been sobbing for hours. Well, unfortunately, this is why these lawyers send those, to create those reactions so that you back off and you step away from it. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of it. And I do a lot of my job is picking up the pieces of it. And it's really horrible. But unfortunately, that is part of the tactics. So we've got to get out of the emotional response and see it for what it is. This is a business with a tactical strategy. Now, is your law firm geared up to work with that? And how do you minimize the impact of that on your finances? You know, so it's important. It's all really good information. Oh, if I'm in Australia, oh yeah, of course, sorry, honey. In Australia, Commonwealth law, similar. Okay, so yeah, these tactics come up. But ultimately, guys, what I want to say is that, you know what, divorce is a process, you know, and we need to treat that process as a business and not take it as an emotional, you know, that people are sending letters that may be hurtful, may be aggressive. You know, we may agree, we may disagree with them. But what I think is the important thing is how you look after you. Put on your Teflon suit that we've talked about, zip it up so that nothing sticks. So just wash off a duck's back. Because ultimately, these people are just doing a job. They've got templates, they're sending out letters, they do this day in, day out, and that's what they do. We have to be resilient. We have to see it for what it is. And we have to say, look, you know what? We're not responsible for their behavior, but we are responsible for our emotions. And yes, it's hurtful, but it's designed to be. So if you can see it for the tactics that it is, then hopefully that makes you feel a little bit stronger. Go, I see. Okay, so this is the letter to make me back off. Oh, okay, so the intention behind this is to wear me down. You know, so just be savvy so that it's not hitting you face on, full on, that it's kind of like, I kind of see what they're doing here. It's a tactic. Do you see what I mean? If you can see it like that, it'll dial down the intensity and you'll be able to cope a little bit better. Take it from someone who's been on the receiving end of many, many of those letters. And I understand, but actually the boomerang effect, which I talk about in my books, is all about when you get knocked down the first time, it takes a while to get back up. But actually, the more you get used to this, the more you practice these techniques, the faster you bounce back. You know, you faster you bounce back. So, you know, take it all as a lesson. Okay, I was down and out there for a couple of days. It completely threw me. I couldn't speak to anyone. I couldn't even phone my lawyer back. It was just too much. Another tactic I would use in lawyers is ask them not to forward you anything without doing a little opinion piece underneath. So even if it's just a few years there, so this letter is quite aggressive, but ultimately it's fine. What they're doing is this, I'll respond with this. You know, just so it takes the heat out, because when we as lay people read those letters, it can have more of an impact. So we don't understand the tactics necessarily. We don't understand the legal jargon. So it can be very intimidating and scary. But it doesn't need to be. If you get your lawyer as a shield, so they don't just send you stuff that's scary, they translate it and go, this is what they're saying, however, this is what I think, and these are the good points, and this is what we can do with it. You know, whew, you can breathe again, okay? And then you read it. You know, so those sort of things will help you just to manage that initial shock. But as you go through this process, you will get better at coping with it. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions here. Thank you, Sarah. Very helpful advice. Is all a game. Unfortunately, yes. In your situation, it is. Yeah. K2 1994. Hello. Are you divorcee? Divorcee? Am I divorcee? I'm happily divorced. So I'm divorcee. I am a divorcee, if that's what you mean. Am I divorced? Yes, I am divorced. Or just giving advice? Well, I'm known as the divorce coach, and I help people cope better with any kinds of breakups and divorce. So that's what I do. Anyway, guys, we're coming to the end of the session. Please do keep your questions coming through, because I think it's really interesting to have questions to answer, which is great, and I can jot them in. But I really appreciate all your questions as you've been jumping on in the last half an hour. I really look forward to seeing you tomorrow for our next one at 2 p.m. But in the meantime, do send me through any questions and keep me posted on how you're getting on. All right, well, I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Lots of love. Bye.